Freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Martin Luther King Jr. Good evening. Let's move on to some important matters. This one isn't inward. This one is actually outward. And if you know what I'm talking about, well, good. If not, don't worry about it. So I think what might be good to focus on if we want to go ahead and finish this game is what works, what doesn't in ways you can change to be more free. And so what we're going to do, hi John C. Oddity and The Plain Truth, is just kind of look over some things as far as what occurred in history and what has been occurring, and list them in a couple of ways. And may have to just, I think it might be easier if we just go ahead and switch over. And please feel free to join me on the Zoom. And work with me. I mean, these are just things that if we want this, we need to do this together. Let's just say that. Because look, what seems to be the case in a lot of countries right now, where they are having a lot of civil unrest, is that they are coordinated and they are active and they are adamant about what they want. With the American people, I don't see that happening. And let's brainstorm, and let's look throughout history, and let's look throughout current events, and let's see what's been working and what hasn't been. Because if we want some change, we need to figure out what works. Because we've been doing things a lot where things haven't been working. So we need to figure out what's working. And let's see. So, like, for example, we'll go through this. Unted 2. I think maybe we do it in levels. Yeah, maybe that way. Maybe I do it through. Let's see. Maybe I need to reverse that. Unwanted. That would just make things complicated. You know, again, if you guys can help me out here, that would be good. Unwanted equals 10. I got those backwards. Okay, so hi Grant Jarvis, how's it going? All right, so for example, revolution, like a full-scale revolution, definitely very, very difficult. Let's go ahead and put everything here. Wanted, pretty much 10. So this is going to be like the least wanted and most difficult thing. Let's see. Freedom. Premise, dates, 6. said it, but didn't type down what I wanted. Successful. Let's just say yes. Yeah. All right. Now, I think it's suffice to say, no one really wants a revolution. We don't want to start with this. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of known. All right, we got someone here. Aether Band Boy. All right, let's go ahead and admit Aether Band Boy, and let's go back to the main monitor. Hi, Aether.
Hello. What? Oh,
How's it going? Or should I say plain truth?
yeah. This is my Zoom account. When I first joined Zoom, it was with Iron Realm Media,
Yep, I know.
and so I was giving him a kick in the shins by calling myself Ether Fanboy.
I noticed you've been trying to
Because
get.
they didn't.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna because they didn't like the fact that I was using the term Ether Band.
Oh, so you just rub it in their faces?
Yeah.
That's funny. I've noticed that you've been trying to get your live streams up. But you seem to have microphone difficulties or something.
Yeah. And then I just get lazy and I'm like, forget it. I'm just gonna forget it. So.
Yeah. What are you going through? Are you going through OBS or just Google's live video? How are you setting your live streams up?
Sorry, say that one more time.
Oh, how are you setting up your live streams? Is it through like OBS or just live stream now?
Streamlabs.
Okay.
I use Streamlabs. So it's but what happened was Streamlabs crashed like a month or two ago, and I could never get the mic to work again, and so I just gave up.
Okay, that sucks.
So yeah, but anyway, yeah. So I sent a link to a friend of mine that I think would be great in this conversation, but I don't know if he's going to join. He's in Milwaukee, and it's probably past his bedtime. But anyway.
Okay. Well,
I'd say hi.
Hi, and thank you for joining in. I don't have to do this alone.
Yeah. I think it's a good conversation. I think that trying to figure out what level of activism is going to be helpful is, I think, a healthy conversation.
All right. Yeah, I think so too, because it feels like there's a lot of people and a lot of groups all trying to make some type of change, and yet nothing is changing. And so I don't know if it's...
Well, I mean, think about this, right? Think about this. I would almost have to make it a full-time job to go around my neighborhood and canvass the neighborhood like a telemarketer, or like a salesman for solar paneling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to have conversations with people who are either fully asleep and you know how long those conversations happen. I mean, there's just it's a long, drawn out process. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yep. And I wonder if the first thing we do is assess where we're at. Like, for example, do you think the level of freedom that we have, let's just, I take it you're in the U.S. Hi, Dragon. Hi, Ariel.
Are you saying I'm in the U.S.?
Yeah, are you in the U.S.?
I am.
Okay. Well, as far as like our rights go, what do you think our level of freedom is?
We have no rights. We have no freedoms because we have been placed under the color of law. If you just think about our traffic, our motor vehicle association, our motor vehicle administration, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Fourth Amendment gives us the right, not gives us. The Fourth Amendment describes our right to preserve our person and our property.
Can you hold on for a little bit? Sorry. Altering Current is saying that I'm loud and you're quiet. Can you adjust your microphone level, and I'll lower mine a little bit.
I'm on my phone, so how am I going to do that?
Oh, all right. I'll adjust.
I'm not sure if I can do that.
I'll adjust the desktop audio and I'll lower my mic audio. Let's see. All right. Can you say something?
I'm gonna say something. This is
normal voice.
Okay, sorry. This is a volume check. Test. 1 2 1 2. Testing out there.
All right, that looks like it's gonna be as good as we're gonna get it. All right.
All right. Well.
All right. So, continue on. Sorry, you're talking about the.
Yeah. So imagine. I don't know if you know this or not. It's on my Red Hen Radio channel, but I was arrested back in January, and as I sat in my car before I was arrested and threatened to be dragged out of my car, the officer said, "I want to see your papers, please." And I said, "I would like to." I would like to, what the hell am I trying to say? Invoke my right to preserve my papers and my properties according to the Fourth Amendment, because if I give you my papers, you can use them against me in a court of law, and I don't want to incriminate myself. He's like, "Listen, just give me your papers." I said, "I'm invoking the Fourth Amendment." He said, "Listen, you can either come out of that car on your own or we'll drag you out." So I didn't have any rights. Why don't I have any rights? Because the traffic codes and the traffic statutes are override the Bill of Rights. So I am supposed to, I was written up for 14 infractions, 14 citations. I had like $5,000 in charges, and the possibility of over 2 years of jail time for what they got me for, right? So one of the things that they cited me for was failure to obey an officer's command. Well, his command was going to remove my Fourth Amendment right. So which supersedes the other? Do I have the right to preserve my papers and my property? You can't steal my car. You're going to take my car from me right now? You're going to kidnap me? So you're violating my Fourth Amendment rights. So no, we have no rights.
Just so people know, if you guys are listening in, Fourth Amendment is about search and seizure, unlawful search and seizure. So, yeah, that's.
You have to have the officer has to have a warrant. So I'm sitting there in my car. I said, "Do you have a warrant?" "No." "What is your probable cause for pulling me over?" Well, probable cause in traffic has to do with the fact that you had a tail light out. That's my probable cause. I have the right to pull you over.
Yeah.
Now, if I honked my horn at you, you and I are driving down the road, and I honked my horn at you, I'm like, "Pull over! Pull over!" You're like, "I'm not going to pull over. I don't know who you are."
Yeah.
But we have to do that when an armed officer, under the color of law, seems to think that he can tell us what to do.
Yeah.
We don't have any rights.
And I saw a news article from my old hometown in Somerville, Massachusetts. In Framingham, Massachusetts, there's a video that's been shown where police raided a house in order to secure it while a warrant was being processed. And one of the cops was threatening to shoot the dog for having it attacked the police officers that went into their house. They didn't have a warrant. They said they were securing the house while the warrant was being processed. So, yeah, things are getting a little bit hectic. Okay, so we're kind of on the boat that we're losing our freedoms, or we don't even have it.
Yeah, and that's actually something that I was thinking about this week in terms of activism. I thought because you're never going to win an argument on the side of the road with a cop. You're not going to be able to convince him that he's violating your rights because he's under his training. He's under the impression that the law says, which it does. If you look up the Maryland transportation code, it says you must do what the officer says for you to do. If you are pulled over by an officer, you must obey, or you risk being put in jail. Okay, so that is the height of coercion. The only reason why I'm doing this is because you're threatening me with coercion and violence and fines. But one of the things that I was thinking of in terms of activism was there's a strip where I live where cops set up on a regular basis. On Saturday, I saw them pull over like 3 different people, and I thought about getting out with a bullhorn and standing in the median and being the voice of reason uh, instead of the person who's being pulled over. I would be yelling from the sideline, "Ma'am, you are free to go." Talking about the Fourth Amendment. This officer has no right to pull you over and infringe your rights, and then just run the riot act on the cop because, first of all, I'm not in the cop's space. I'm 30, 40, 50 feet away, so I'm not a threat to him physically. But at the same time, I would be able to give the driver maybe a boost of information that they can maybe hopefully look up and start to rethink things.
Yeah.
But that was my little rebellious thought of like, yeah, that's what I could do. I'd be like a, But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, and a lot of people are. I hate using that word, awakening. Just starting to sense that, and the way the way that seems to happen is that people are taken out of their comfort zones, either voluntarily most of the time, and in that case would be me, or involuntarily in maybe in the similar case as you and other people where they realize, hey, I thought I had rights, and they realize, oh, I don't. What happened? Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if you think about the fact that we are required to get licenses to drive, to travel.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Beatles song. It wasn't a mainstream song, but talking about the tax man taxing the steps that you take. If you want to have an interesting conversation with someone, say, what would you do if your city started taxing you for every step that you take on public sidewalks? They'd be like, oh, that's crazy. That's absolutely insane. I should have their like, yeah, that's what they did with your driving. All they did was regulate something that you have the right to do.
Yeah.
You should be able to either walk to the grocery store, take a skateboard, take some rollerblades, take a bicycle, but oh no, if you're driving a car, you don't have that freedom. No. So, I mean, but we don't think about it. I didn't think about it. They don't sit down with you in your driver's class and say, okay, class, now after this class is over, you're going to have the option of submitting to the state by relinquishing all of your rights. Because if you sign up for this, if you get a driver's license, you are basically placing yourself under the color of law where you have to do what we say. But you also could just drive your car on your own and not come out. You don't have to register your car. You don't have to get insurance. You don't have to get a license. Which are you going to choose? Yeah, I'm not even going to go to this class. I'm just going to drive my car and be safe. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But that's interesting too. I don't know. Do you have any kids, Ivan?
Yes, I do. I have 2.
Okay, so think about this. At what point, you have a daughter or a son?
I have both a daughter and a son.
Okay. At what point is your daughter obliged to begin doing what the state says. like right now, she's not under any obligation from the state, is she?
No.
Okay, so the question then becomes, at what point does she have to relinquish her freedoms?
When she gets a permit or a license.
Says who? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't you just simply teach your daughter how to drive safe and how to call for help if she gets into an accident? You can show up and help out with your daughter and Mrs. Jones if she got into a fender bender or whatever. You know, why can't you just teach your daughter how to drive safe and say, Jane, okay, listen, Janie, I want you to be careful. I want you to obey. You know, I taught you how to stop. I taught you how to yield. I taught you how to signal. Just go out and do your best and be safe. You know what I mean? Because because what you have to understand is that once you get the license, you're placing yourself within that matrix. And so in a sense, you're obliging yourself to live within that matrix concept. But what if you say, I'm not going to do that? So you don't put yourself under their authority. That's the trick. So, because if you don't have a car that's registered to the state, they can't take your car because it's your property. But if you register your car to the state, you've now given your car over to the state because now it's licensed by the state. Now it's tagged by the state, and you have now just given up your ownership of that car because now they can come and take it from you because you've placed yourself within that construct. But then you say, I'm not going to enter into that world. I'm going to exist in another universe where I'm not obliged to pull over because I'm not in that world. You're operating in a completely different world than I am. Now, they're not going to understand that. So but again, that's part of, I think, resistance to a certain extent, not wanting to conform to that construct. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that we may have to tackle on.
Well, think about this. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. It's good. It's good. I mean, it's such a. It's one of those things where it's just not plainly in the open for people to realize. They have to think things through, and that's kind of like a topic in itself that's a good topic on its own. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, think about this then. What's the only reason why you will get a driver's license?
You drive so you don't get ticketed.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's coercion.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm doing this is so that you'll leave me alone.
Yep.
Is that not extortion?
It is. Yes.
So I have no choice. I have no choice when I want to drive my car. I have to do what you say.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you'll throw me in jail or fine me. And if I don't pay the fine, you'll suspend my license and then I can't work.
Did you ever watch Godfather?
Oh, yeah. I love that show.
Yeah.
Love that movie.
It's like, here, you need protection. You should pay me some money and I'll protect you.
Right. Yeah. Protect you from me.
Yeah.
Right. That's right. No. But see, that's the whole thing. Mark Stevens, I don't know if you know who Mark Stevens, the No State Project, but he does traffic court talks on Wednesdays and Saturdays. But he describes the police state as, a band of thieves and robbers and murderers. I mean, they're basically highwaymen. They pull anybody over on the side of the road they want. You can't do anything about it.
Yep.
But if I did that to you on my own, I'd be violating your rights. You know why? Because I'm not in the police officer world. So I can't do that to you. Now, if I had the uniform, I could. Right? So look at that. Think about that contrast there. I cannot on my own pull out a gun and force you to stop on the side of the road and write you a citation and say, pay pay my company $500 because of X, Y, and Z. I can't do that unless I have a badge.
Yep.
Then it's okay. Then I can do
it. It's giving your freedom to an authority in order to I just don't know how to say it. It doesn't seem necessary, let's call it that, for a supposedly free state.
Yeah.
All right. So I was, the way I was doing this was is just kind of going over. I mean, I know you can see the screen, but you won't be able to see any updates except for a couple, maybe half a minute, if you're still watching on YouTube. But what I like is to get people's like opinion of what types of actions that are being taken, because I do know like outreach is probably the easiest one, and what's most wanted.
What do you mean by outreach?
Just passing along information of what's going on or what's happening. And this can pretty much happen anywhere. and I think it kind of helps. What do you think? I mean, do you think we reach anyone when we're constantly doing these live streams and making these videos of what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. When I was doing my my Bible study podcast, I could see the numbers and I could see the downloads and the watch and all that, but I never got any feedback from anybody. No matter how I begged them to, respond and send me an email, send me a voicemail, and yet nothing. So I don't know. I don't know how you gauge that. But I mean, I would have to think that of the thousands of views that I did see that was recorded, I'm like, well, somebody's watching, somebody's listening,
Yeah. They are, but then it feels like you end up being, it's like here's the weird thing about the whole creating content, because it does take a lot of time to create a lot of content, enough to draw in people who are interested in watching or listening to the content, and then you've got this thing that happens is, okay, it's too small. Like, if my live streams will never reach 100 live viewers, unfortunately, but that's been the case for the last couple of years. And when it does, and it goes up to maybe the thousands or 2000s, there's people want to watch and they're paying to watch. And then, like, do I get too comfortable? Right? I'm like, hey, I'm now the person who's just telling you what you should be doing rather than going out there and doing it. And so it has to be kind of like that medium where you can't get too comfortable, because once you get too comfortable, you don't want change, because guess what? You're comfortable. But I think you have to be, if you really want freedom and freedom to change and actual change, you need to keep yourself from being comfortable. Because otherwise you're not going to want to be in on that action, So please, people, don't get me too comfortable. So it's like what my brother always tells me, because sometimes, like, he'll go, hey, do you want to go play a game? And I go, okay. The next thing I know, I put my head down on the couch and I fall asleep, and I wake up hours later saying, sorry, I fell asleep. And he always just says, don't put your head down. But okay, all right. Let's we need to do just a talk on things like that, and just kind of at the how free do you think we are type of topic, right? And you know what? We should do that on your channel. plain truth. Just get your channel going with your live streams, because I know people watch. They're watching like you going, hey, we can't hear you, type of thing. But all right, so there's a couple of actions I have. Like, I'm definitely putting the stuff people don't want. Revolution is probably the hardest, because I mean, people kind of have to lay down their lives almost in order to get what they want. And it's the most unwanted thing, but it's for the biggest amount. Biggest risk, biggest reward. Then you've got civil unrest, which we're seeing a lot of. I don't know how much that about the civil unrest that's going on in other countries. Hopefully people who are on chat will know. Altering coin, giving up. I didn't say I give up fully. It's just that situations change, so I can't do it, type of thing. But if I can keep going, I try to keep going, and but it's fine. I think that's good to hear, altering current. It's like, I mean, there's times I can't keep going, like literally can't, but if I can keep going, I will. All right, so civil unrest, I say it's just the step above a full-scale revolution, because it's people who really don't want to kill anybody or hurt anybody, but they definitely want change. And basically what they do is they create almost an unlivable, not unlivable, an unmanageable economical system within those communities. So especially on a big populated city, they're going to make it very difficult for people to go to work, very difficult for people who are shop owners to actually run their shop. It's almost it's pretty much total stoppage of a system within a location. And we're seeing this in Brazil and Hong Kong, China, in France with the yellow vests. We've seen it happen in the U.S. back in 1964 with the civil rights movement. I think if we really want to tackle something, that might be our next step. But, it's so difficult and so unwanted that, we're not, I don't think we're there as a nation to have such a civil unrest as much.
Well, that would be interesting to almost have like a yellow vests. What I was saying before about confronting the traffic cop situation. Let's say, we were able to get maybe 15 people together who were going to say, okay, we are going to put on these vests. We're going to be unarmed. We're going to make it obvious that we're coming at this to protest and to exhibit our rights to free speech. But it would almost be like ambulance chasing, but you're police car chasing, so that when you see a police officer pull someone over on the side of the road, you guys get out and you walk over to the car and you say to the woman, ma'am, you're free to leave. Let us handle this. And we say to the officer, look, you're operating under a color of law where you are oppressing us and you are violating our rights. I mean, because I would rather do something like that with 15 other people. If I did it on my own, I think that I would be, a lot more open to, to being taken advantage of or abused or physically hurt. But I mean, something like that, even to stay on this topic, if you don't mind me hijacking.
No, go ahead.
The same thing I've thought about going into the court system with the traffic court, because it's the same situation. It's not common law. You are there under a certain construct of law that fits the construct of traffic court, that you don't have any rights. And I think if people knew and understood that they could stand up for themselves in traffic court, and if we had more people doing that and more people burning up the court's time, I think that we would be able to implement change in that arena as well. But people don't know what to say. They don't know how to challenge the court's jurisdiction. I do, and I've done it a couple of times, and it actually feels pretty good standing up for yourself, even if the judge simply hand wave dismisses your argument and fines you anyway. Mm-hmm. I know that I won the argument. I know that I just said to you, where's your evidence that your codes and statutes apply to me? Well, they apply to you because we have codes and statutes. No, all you're doing is reiterating your point. I know that there are codes and statutes. Where's your evidence they apply to me? Well, I'm just going to fine you. Okay, that's fine. Let the record show that I object. But people don't know that they can, even if you still get fined, it's empowering to be able to stand up and you know, it's like standing up to the bully and still getting your ass kicked. You're like, you know, at least I stood up. But I don't think a lot of people know, and it, you know, it takes a certain person, a certain personality like me. I mean, I have a personality to where I'm not afraid of talking in front of people, for one thing, so I can stand up in a courtroom and express myself. But there's a lot of people where they're like, oh, I'm just going to pay the fine. You know, mm-hmm. Well, fine, you know, be a slave if you want.
It's like the easiest option for people, and they know that they're not going to get in more trouble, type of thing. And yeah, it is bad. And while you're talking about this, I was just wondering, because I think there's a difference between cities and small towns, and I don't know how these changes take place. For example, in a big city, typically what happens is the mayor gets elected and he chooses a chief of police for that city. But in towns, in smaller towns, what happens, you elect a mayor, but you also elect the sheriff of that town, right, who manages the police. And that can be quite different, you know, it's like, because the sheriff doesn't really want to just start hampering down on like drivers within that town, when the town's the only reason he has a job is because he's elected.
He's elected, right?
But you know, the people in these major cities, they don't have a voice in who they want as the chief of police. You know, the mayor gets to make that decision, and so of course, the chief of police can pretty much do anything, and then he's kind of under the vice of the mayor. But if the mayor's in good standing, and you know, major cities, a lot of people make a lot of money anyways, and usually can raise enough money for people to go out and vote for them. It just seems like a different situation. What are your thoughts on that?
I really don't have my fingers in the political arena. I mean, I don't vote as it is. Mm-hmm. I don't participate in that. So I'm not real sure. I mean, I know the mayor in the town next to me where I live. Mm-hmm. But you know, I don't know who the chief of police is in the city where I live. So I think that there are people who might have their fingers in those pies. And so they do have that kind of vested interest and investment in terms of, you know, voting for the sheriff, and the sheriff is wanting to make sure that he doesn't offend his constituents and whatnot. So I think that there is a delicate balance there. And then, yeah, I'm sure your description of the bigger cities, like Baltimore is the biggest city, you know, nearest me, and then Philadelphia. So on that scale, that dynamic changes altogether, I'm sure.
Yeah. Because I mean, where I used to live, I mean, in Somerville, Massachusetts, it was just like constant tickets going on. It's like you're there just visiting someone, and you just go and get a guest parking thing from the person you're visiting. In the span of 1 minute, they somehow know that you're going to go get that guest pass, and then they'll start writing up a ticket. I mean, it's that bad. And I mean, a lot of people in that city were just angry at just how the police in the parking situation is just like having to pay all those fines. And they're like, look, it's not a problem. I mean, traffic used to be a problem, but now, the city kind of understood, and they increased the areas where you can actually park. And basically all this stuff that's being, that people are paying for is just kind of harassment of, look, we there's no one on that street. People haven't complained about other people just taking up their parking spots, etc. And it's basically the residents that are paying the parking fines or having to go and fight to not pay for that citation. And so and usually what happens, you just fight for it, and typically most of the time, you don't have to pay, but sometimes you do pay. It's just easier too. And then you just file a complaint, and what else can you do? I mean, you're just kind of overwhelmed by a whole bunch of people who may pretty much vote for the incumbent again, the mayor, etc. And just that's that.
Well, if you think about this, just go back to the traffic situation. When you look at your citation, it gives you three options. You can either plead guilty, not guilty, or no contest. But they don't tell you the fourth option, and that is that you can file a motion to dismiss based on certain categories. They don't tell you that, but that you have that capability. But if you don't know that it's out there, you're not going to take that route. I will from now on, because paperwork slows them down. So you can file a motion to dismiss based on X, Y, and Z. If you get a rejection letter, then you can file a motion to reconsider. I mean, there's just, you just keep them busy, make them work, make them, have to reject your appeals. And if you go into court and you defend yourself and the judge finds you guilty, appeal. Because when you get to a certain level in the appellate courts, from what I've heard, they're going to leave you alone because they don't want it to go any higher.
Yeah.
They don't want people rocking the boat. They want Granny Smith to just pay her fine. But you get someone like me that takes it up 3 more levels. You don't want the 3rd level judge to say, why didn't you just let this guy go? Why did you bring him up to my court? I don't want to deal with this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But people don't know that those are their options.
Yeah, that's such a difficult thing too, because yeah, man, that's a whole topic in itself. Everyone's gonna spend more time when they could be dedicated to doing their job. They spend half that time making sure that they go out there and look good to the public so they get reelected. They're spending half their time trying to look good and balancing that with if they're actually doing a good job. And that, I feel like that's a problem in itself, because rather than actually hearing what the problems are and fixing those problems, they're going out there to kind of persuade people that everything's fine, things are better than ever type of thing. And to have that appearance of yeah, I'm doing a great job. Things are better than ever, and not really.
Well, I
Um,
mean, think about it. I have never needed a police officer to serve and protect me. The
yeah.
only and think about this: whenever you see an officer, what's your immediate visceral response? You got to check your speed. He pulled in behind you. Oh shit, was I going too fast? I mean, that's not the way anybody wants to live. Who wants to live in fear? I mean, even on a level of traffic, I'm afraid. I'm afraid he's going to pull me over. I mean, that's abuse.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's what's interesting is on the one hand, you're right that there's a certain constituency with civilians and people who might vote to put you in office, but on the other hand, you're an employee of the state, and it's your job to generate revenue.
Hmm.
So, somebody's going to lose out. And if you're, you know what I mean? So who, am I going to want to please the constituencies and be real lenient and not issue as many citations this month? And then the state comes down and says, why has your district been so low in the revenues lately? Your numbers are pretty low. You don't want,
Yeah.
it's a delicate dance.
Yeah, you should have like we do notice that a lot of um like a lot of talk about there being quotas in police departments, whether for
Yeah,
traffic stops or
yeah. End of the
tickets.
month stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and some people just I don't know if police reveal that information or not. I'd have to relook at that, but people usually talk about it because it's like, huh? It's like the end of the
Well,
month,
now
and
that you said that, remember I told you that I was driving down the one strip and there was like, I might have said it. Uh, I saw like 3 cops pull over 3 different people.
hmm,
That was at the end of the last month.
yeah. And yeah, that's why people say, hey, is there like a quota going on that they need to get a certain amount
Yeah,
of tickets? Because I mean, a lot of people just drive back and forth the same routes, right?
yeah,
And then they notice, hey, there's usually no police officers just waiting. Now we've got like 3 patrol cars. It's like, what's going on? It's not
yeah,
like there's something special that's going on. And if there is a problem with speeding, rather than putting 3 patrol cars there every day, they should be doing something different, right? It's like, hey, rather than ticketing people who are, we have this problem with this one stretch of the road or something, why don't we figure this out and do something about that stretch of the road, whether have speed bumps or have those like electronic speeding sensors, so they tell you how fast you're actually going and stuff like that. Like they can actually do something where uh it may take a couple of tax dollars, but it's not really that much to put in speed bump or those electric things that are solar powered. Um, and if it still becomes a problem, then yeah, maybe just 1 or 2 police officers. But yeah, it does feel as though um, there are quotas within the police departments for certain cities and towns.
yeah,
And those types of things, I feel as though that like the localized protests, they do seem to work. I mean, because you do have control within that town of kind of reaching out. Like outreach can happen very well at a local level. I think politics and voting it does work quite a bit at the local level. Localized protests, they also do, but when we're talking about something where you get systematic changes at the state and federal level that reflect all the way down to the county and city level, then it's hard to organize something like that and prevent that from happening. Like hey, it's now a federal law, so every state has to abide by it, and that includes every town, county, and etc. So it's like those things won't work. Outreach, local politics, local protests. you have to make those changes at a national level that's occurring. You have to have like protests at the national level, which we would call civil unrest, and if need be, revolutions. So how do we get from that point where we see things working, at least recently, where it doesn't have to go to that huge level of civil unrest and revolution? To, I mean, what can we do?
Well, what would you address if you had the ability to voice your concern? Like, what remedy would you be seeking?
First, transparency in government. So, uh, if there are closed door types of meetings going on where the press can't even go in, and not just the press, but just anyone who wants to listen in on it, and they're not allowed to, and they can't tape it, that should be gone and done with. I think there needs to be more oversight on government by individual people, third parties, those that are, it's not like corporations, not organizations, not for hell no, not the government itself. But that used to be done, but now a lot of that, it's been, I'd say, I don't know if the right term is subjugated, but it's just out of our hands. We don't know who's doing what and whether they're affiliated with the corporation or they're getting like handouts and stuff like that, but just weird stuff. And I'm talking just, I guess, the U.S. level as a country. And there are, I think we may have to readjust for appointed positions within government. So, I mean, that's kind of what the president does and is voted in by Congress, but it's not ever voted on by the people. So people who end up becoming like the head of the CIA, FBI, NSA, etc., they're all appointees where people within, just the people within the citizens of the country have no say on who gets appointed or not. All of that goes to the president, the Congress, and I think, and in certain levels, the Supreme Court.
Did you ever watch Deadwood?
No, I never got to watch that.
Oh man, I watched it again last month or the month before, but it's absolutely fantastic writing. But I was, when I was thinking through this stuff last year, and every once in a while I'll revisit it in my mind along the lines of what you're talking about, because I really do want to figure out how to be a voice of change and be the change. And so in my mind, I created this Tumbleweed, Arizona, or Tumbleweed, Oklahoma, just, this place where if we, like you and I and 20 other families and our families, we all just go out, we buy this plot of land, and we start Tumbleweed, Arizona, but we don't register anything with the state. We don't register anything with the feds. We just want to live our lives, grow our own food, smith our own shoes, or whatever, And when I started thinking along those lines and kind of daydreaming there, I was like, wait a minute. What if that whole Waco, Texas, David Koresh thing was just these people that were like, we just want to be free. We just want to do. All I know about it is what I learned on mainstream media. Well, what I know about mainstream media now, that could have just been the story that we were given. That could have been a group of freedom lovers who just wanted to start their own Tumbleweed, Arizona, and just grow their own food, sew their own clothes, and do their own thing. I mean, I would be interested and willing to go out on a limb that way. Go out, find some land, let's start building our own homes, and then see how long it takes for Uncle Sam to come knocking and saying, "You owe us." We're like, "Who are you? We don't owe you anything. We're not going to pay your taxes." we're not going to take in any of your federal funding. We're not going to, install any of your sheriffs. We're not going to, we're perfectly fine. We're good. Thanks. Move along.
I'm gonna need to watch it. I heard it's like, what is it now? Like season 8 or something? It's been a long time.
No. Deadwood was, I think, only 3 seasons from 2004 to 2007.
Man.
And
okay.
Yeah, it was just 3 seasons, but basically it was unincorporated land in I think it was Montana, anything out in the Midwest, and it was a gold mining town, and basically they were their own law, but I mean there's more to it, but it was actually fantastic. It was on the level of Breaking Bad in terms of how well it was written. It was such good writing.
Oh man, but, I guess I'll have to watch it. Three seasons doesn't seem like a tough like.
I think you'll burn through it pretty quick. It's on Prime, Amazon Prime.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll take a look.
Yeah.
Usually I watch things with my wife, so.
Well, it's pretty vulgar. I mean, it's. They actually had an episode where they intentionally swore as much as they could to break the record for how many swear words they could say in one episode. But but yeah, it's pretty vulgar, pretty violent. So unless your wife is,
yeah, she's okay with that.
Yeah, okay.
Let's see.
But anyway, just thinking along what you were just saying again in terms of, you were talking about transparency with the political leadership and whatnot. I mean, that's a full-time job, man. You're canvassing and campaigning and lobbying in that area. You know what I mean? That would be interesting to have a freedom movement lobbying expression, to where I don't know, maybe that does exist. I just don't live in that world. I'm not usually into politics and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, my awakening process happened in 2016 with Bernie Sanders when he was running as the DNC primary, and then things took a horrible turn with the DNC fraud, the election fraud occurring within the DNC, and Bernie Sanders kind of giving up after having a talk with President Obama at the White House, because he was pretty adamant about fighting it all the way to the Democratic National Convention, because the mainstream media was kind of pushing for the super delegates kind of already counting their votes, even though they don't really count their votes until the national convention occurs. And but they've always been counting them in within all the the regular delegates. And so he was gonna say, yeah, I'm just gonna fight it, and keep fighting for the nomination all the way to the national convention. And then all of a sudden he just kind of stopped, gave in, said he's supporting Hillary Clinton, she's the nominee, and after that, people were just like, okay, I'm done too. he gave up. We're giving up, because that's just yeah. Anyways, a lot of things seems to change from year to year, but for a lot of people it's always been good, and for me, materialistically bad, but spiritually great. Right? There's always that little kind of that pendulum swing, and I could, part of it was like, do I just kind of also give up on the whole material plane and just focus on the spiritual and just kind of live out my rest of my life, just kind of not caring or being unaware of what's going around in the world? Or do I try to do something about it? And so, I was like, screw it. I'm already good spiritually. I feel like I got that set in stone. I know what I like or what I want. What I have is good enough. And so, all right, let's take it on. Right. I've got nothing to lose. I've kind of already lost all of it within the material realm. So what else is there to go? Oh, there's something called freedom, and let's not let anyone else have to suffer the way that a lot of people are suffering. And that's why, you know, politics is kind of a big thing for a lot of people, because it's one of the most wanted things in order to have change, right? It's like, hey, we'll just all like support someone who we trust is going to do the things he or she says they're going to do when they're in office. They'll vote for legislation that supports the people who voted for them, and therefore things change and we're good to go. And time again, what we see is the opposite happens. People vote for someone they trust and what they say they're going to do, and they get into office, they do the exact opposite. People don't get what they want, and then the person isn't really accountable. Sometimes they get reelected even, and the majority kind of suffer. And it seems like, hey, how does that work? How do the majority suffer when the majority vote? Yet the people if the majority vote for someone to get out, that person somehow still doesn't get out. I mean, like for all these polls that are always done. And I always recount back into 2016, because the polls for the favorability rating in Congress was always dipping. It got down to as low as 11%. So 11% favorability within Congress. That's both the Senate and the state representatives. Yet to the 2016 election, the incumbent re-election rate for the House of Representatives were at something like 92%, and for the Senate it was at something like 96 to 98%. So for an unfavorability rating at 11%, how is the re-election rate for the incumbents at pretty much the opposite? And that always just gets stuck in my head. Is that a problem with election tampering somehow? I mean, we can't really audit our votes and see if they go through. There's multiple nodes where you don't know whether your vote is what it shows when the mainstream media reports it, you know? And we've seen mainstream media, when they're reporting on election coverage, sometimes they'll reach results when they shouldn't have been able to reach those results, and sometimes they flip it and turn it, and all of a sudden it's just opposite what you see. So it's, if we already know mainstream media is lying, we know that the government's lying, and there's no transparency and there's no enforcement. Like I wish I could say that quote in Latin, but it's basically who watches the watchers, who guards the guardsmen, who investigates the investigators, that type of thing. And really, there isn't any of that going on, because that's been pretty much stymied by the government, which is something that shouldn't have been done. Yeah, it's been done and it's been going on, and no one could stop it. It's like people are going to say, hey, what are you going to do? You can go out there with guns and stop it? It's like, well, what other choice do we have? I mean, let's make a list. Let's see what we can do. And so, yeah, no one wants to go out there with guns to enforce the government that have bigger guns, right? So what's option B? Because option A isn't working, and option C is something no one wants. So what's option B? So that's kind of the whole point of this thing. All right, authoring. I guess I'll read the chat. Altering current, lots of boobies in Deadwood. Bob, not exactly PG-13.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like a lot, but it wasn't it wasn't gratuitous. Yeah, I think it did a decent job of probably showing the level of degradation. I mean, I don't know. I suppose it depends on how sensitive you are to it. It wasn't something to me that I was like, oh yeah, show me more of that. It was just like that's the way it was. You know what I mean? It came across as this was just the way it was. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Um. hmm. I mean, what do you think? Do you think the best way to kind of see how to enact change? Because we seem to have just gotten, as far as Americans, we seem to have gotten lax, and again, a lot of people just aren't aware of what's going on. Is it just kind of seeing what's going on in other countries right now, the level of civil unrest, and see if how they did that, how they started it and kept it going, and I mean, is that just kind of the only way to actually make these changes possible? Because it seems like that's the last time we had that big of a change in the U.S. where like a group really had equal rights was the civil rights back in 1964. We haven't really had anything like that since, but it seems to be like the only thing that actually works. All right, might be muted or something.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. This
oh, I see.
stupid. I was trying to unmute and I wasn't touching it in the right spot, so then the menu would drop down and disappear. Yeah, I mean, you're asking all the right questions. I'm still trying to think. I'm still trying to think through this. I don't know. That's kind of like why I asked you what would be your, the first thing that you would like to remedy. And you talk about transparency.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, because what right now, there's two options. If you go to revolution, like what we did, and a lot of other countries seem to do, you kind of start over from the ground up. But I think a lot of people are still happy with what they had with the Bill of Rights and stuff like that. But how do we rewind, and just adjust everything, and where did the problem seem to stem from? And a lot of problems seems to stem from, at least what we could find in the current history books, if we just kind of look aside from what we've been taught in like junior high and high school, is just a lot of propaganda that started to occur within media, tied in with people who are within government office, which is also tied in with the military. And for example, the Spanish American War, the idea that the USS Maine had an internal explosion, yet there are reports that it was done from a Spanish mine or something like that, which spurred
right.
the Spanish American War, which got people excited about war, which got Teddy Roosevelt enough credentials to become president, and yada yada yada. Here we go. We've got the military industrial complex. We've got agencies that really don't have any oversight, like the CIA, the NSA, and FBI, and things like that, who are appointed positions. And it's like, all right, it's just kind of seemed to like steamroll from back then, and like if we unroll it, or roll it back up to where it was steamrolling, that seemed to be like a good, aside from the American Civil War, that seemed to be kind of a good, uh, it was good kind of before all of that started to happen. And again, during that time, that's when the Federal Reserve got enacted, and a lot of our accountability for our nation was outside of our nation, as out of the control of the American people. And so,
Well, I mean, yeah. If you think about that and go back to my tumbleweed Arizona idea, think about how many of us would want to go to war, or think about how many of us would actually want to take over an adjacent territory. I mean, not too many people are warheads.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It takes a special kind of psychopath to get to that level.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember even thinking back when I was a kid and hearing about how maniacal Hitler was because he wanted to take over the world, and I can remember thinking, who would want to do that?
Yeah.
That guy was going like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, I heard that. I'm sure others did too.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, if we think about starting Tumbleweed, Arizona, not too many of us are going. We're going to sit down and we're going to say, okay, now how can we build a healthy village? How can we build a healthy city? What are we going to do? How are we going to handle food supply and garbage and all this kind of stuff? I think that we could probably figure it out ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Which is my point in saying, let's go start our own Tumbleweed, Arizona, and see how long it takes for the Fed to come in. But at the same time, we're like, look, we don't have any guns. The only thing that you're doing right now is showing that you're forcing us to do this at gunpoint. And everybody can see you. Everybody knows, because, if you think about it, I don't know if Waco could happen again. Could it? I mean, it was before the internet. It was in the early 90s, right?
Yeah, it's hard to let people know what's going on. I mean, there are ways where they could just shut off either power to a grid or
yeah, but if you're off grid, you know what I mean? If we're in a place where we don't rely on that, go ahead and what are you going to shut down? What? You're going to stop up our creek? Okay, well, whatever. I'm just saying, I don't know.
So do you would I be correct in assuming like off-grid communes as an option? It's just have people just kind of, they want to be left alone. You have your whole town that's pretty much, hey, if you want to be in this town, you have to know what's going on, what your rights are, and what the potentials are, and try to be self-sustainable within those off-grid communities.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's kind of good. That could be difficult, but I think that's almost that's feasible.
Sure, but I would I've thought about it too in terms of it would be difficult, but not any more difficult than building your own house would be more difficult than not. You know what I mean? It's just a different kind of work. So like I tell people that I'm a truck driver, like, oh man, I could never drive around for 10 hours a day or whatever. I'm like, well, you do what you got to do. What do you do? Well, I'm a CPA. I'm like, oh man, I could never crunch it. I could never do that. You know what? So it's everybody's work level is different, their tolerance. But sure, because I talked to a friend of mine and I was telling her, she asked me, she's like, what would you do if you could do anything? I said, I would find a piece of land, I would learn how to farm, and I would get some animals and just want to be left alone. She's like, that would be hard work. I'm like, fuck yeah, that'd be awesome. Excuse me, sorry I swore.
That's fine. You can swear on my channel.
But anyway, it's sure it would be hard, but I think that I think that I have found a lot of satisfaction in hard work that was labor. Like when I get done with my 12-hour day today, I don't usually think, man, that was good. I feel great. That was awesome. But I have felt that way when I've done manual labor and have contributed to something that was vital.
Do you know who Aaron Moorfield is? Moorfield?
Yeah. Let him in. He's a good guy.
Yeah, I gave him the link to Zoom. I think he has to. install it and stuff. So he might be joining in. I mean, I like that idea, but I think like what would also be really good about it is to actually have, how there were reality shows similar to it, but actually live streaming it and having people participate and having people view it and just seeing like day-to-day activities, and also if there's anything that happens within, like, say police come or FBI come and stuff like that where people can watch. And if people are interested, they could join in or they could contribute, or maybe people are making their own organic locally grown stuff, and people watching was like, hey, can you guys like bottle some stuff for me, I'll pay, and things like that. It's like,
right.
I think it's really
Well, I mean, think about this, Ivan, right? We've been told that the primitive people used to think the world was flat. We've been taught that the primitive people used to think that you could treat health issues by eating herbs. We've been told that that primitive people used to just simply trade goods, but now we have money. Now we have pharmaceuticals. Now we have a globe. I mean, all three of those narratives, in my opinion, are narratives that have been misconstrued. Because I told you about a friend of mine. I was having this conversation with her a couple of times, and she's like, "Wait, you want us to just go back and just like trade barter? Going back to barter?" I'm like, "Yeah, why not? You're reacting to that as if it's a bad thing. Well, we've got money now. Well, okay, let's talk about that."
Yeah. Actually, I'm glad you came on, because that is a really good one. And we don't really know. I mean, I feel as though weren't there like a group in Oregon, that they wanted, like, I don't know what happened, and of course Waco, David Koresh, and they the way the mainstream media played it was that they were just cults, right? They're just
Right.
religious cults. But I mean, if you just think of it in this context, it's not a cult. It's just people who just want to be left alone. And
Exactly.
and but if you can be enough off grid, but kind of tapped into the system a little bit to live stream to people, showing this is what we're doing, this is what's going on, this is what you can do, and it'd be hard for federal agencies and stuff to actually to stop it, and have the mainstream media just make lies about what actually happened when say if they go in.
Yeah, you'd almost have to do a preemptive strike and get your information out as a counter narrative. Look, we're not a cult. We don't have a cult leader. He doesn't have 12 wives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is not what's going on. This is what's going on.
Travis, am I here? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, Aaron.
Hey, okay. All right. Hey, Ebum.
Hi, how's it going? Nice to have you in. Is it okay if I change your name, or do you want to leave your email as your name appearing?
Right now, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. If I show up on further calls, we'll change it or do whatever.
Sure. Look, I know at least the plain truth, but I think some people who are watching don't know who Plain Truth is. I don't know if I know you, Aaron, but like, do you guys want to introduce yourselves really quick so people out there kind of know who you are, where you're coming from?
My name's Aaron Moorfield. I'm from Texas, north of Dallas. I don't care if people know who I am or where I'm at, because it's not a big deal. As long as we're all on the same team, you know what I mean?
Yep, I do. I was born in Houston, Texas, by the way. So Another Texan. That's nice.
I was born in Nebraska, raised in Seattle, and I just moved to Texas.
Ah, wow, that's weird because it's kind of like the opposite of me. I was born in Houston, Texas. I was raised in like Federal Way, Seattle area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then now I'm living in Columbus, Nebraska. Yeah.
We're the total like 180, let's say, life experience.
Yeah. Anyways, welcome. How do you like Texas, by the way?
I hate it. It's hot, man. Dude, it's just not cool. No.
Why are you there? Why do you stay there?
Long story, but settled here right now. You know, we'll get into the story later, possibly.
Okay. Yeah.
But I do love Seattle. You know, I was raised in Kent, or like I said, born and raised in Nebraska. Moved to Seattle when I was 10. So we moved to Kent, Renton area. You know, south of Seattle, right next to Federal Way. Um, gee whiz, Maple Valley, all that.
Wow.
You've heard the names.
Mia in chat is asking if you're a flat earther.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So Mia.
It's hard to say that, but you have to say absolutely after what we've heard. Absolutely. But it is a hard statement or question to answer.
Yeah, because once you do, people have like a lot of assumptions about you. If you say yes, you are. But I kind of welcome it. That's what I want. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So absolutely. I have no reason otherwise to believe.
All right, and the plain truth, Travis. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm a truck driver. I was trained in the ministry and basically studied myself out of a job by choosing to resist the consensus and question the mainstream narrative. And that made an easy segue into Flat Earth. When it came up, I was just like, well, yeah, that just totally makes sense. So I've been active with a YouTube account since 2017, just trying to put content out. Aaron, I can't remember, did we know each other on Flat Earth Debate before Red Hen Radio or after Red Hen Radio? I can't remember how it happened.
It was when you started your Red Hen.
Yeah.
I started commenting on your videos, and it was more of the legal issue when you were dealing with your.
Yeah, but I couldn't remember. Did we know each other before on Flat Earth Debate?
No, I'd never been on Flat Earth. Nathan Oakley, not. You know, I listened. That's why I listened to you, because I really liked how you presented yourself on Nathan's. And then when you started your own show and started talking about law and legal stuff, that's when I was felt that it was my need to contact you, you know, on text to say my point of view on those issues.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Ivan? Is that good enough?
Oh no, yeah, that's good. You know, I'm okay with not knowing, but you know, people listening might just kind of get a sense of, you, I guess, because sometimes people come in that are totally new, and just like, Ebon, do you know them? You know, type of thing. So
Ivan, I've heard you all over the place. I was kind of a silent listener. Well, I am still a silent listener, but I've been in contact with like Travis and other folks on text, but I've never actually been on a show. So you're my, you know, you're my cherry, let's say.
Well, thanks for stopping in. You know, I really don't get to talk to a lot of people, even though I leave it open for people to come in.
No worries. Travis actually invited me onto this show tonight, so I hope.
Yeah, I thought you would be a good addition where Iman was asking the question about how we take steps toward changing our environment, changing our cities, our towns, our government. So,
And hopefully more of the not so violent and not so not
Okay,
so.
can I correct Travis real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
He made a huge verbal error right there.
Okay.
He said our government. Travis, would you like to rephrase that?
listen, I'm sad. I'm sorry I invited you into this conversation.
I'm gonna poke at you, Travis. I'm gonna poke at you. You
Yeah, yeah.
said our government.
Listen,
Hello,
I'm talking
hello. This is
colloquially.
land of the free, home of the free. We the people do not have a government. We created a government, correct? We created one for a specific purpose, but it was not to govern you and me, right? That's that's not what normal people would do. We would never uh, point at some other dude and say, "Hey, govern me," right? We wouldn't do that. But we, the people, would create a government for a specific purpose. Yes. And so we we have a government, but it's not our government.
I was just
What
being quiet to see Travis's response.
He broke up a little bit wherever I was going through. I didn't hear everything that he said, but he touched on a little bit of what I was saying earlier. If we started Tumbleweed, Arizona, I don't think that we would, as a collective group, say something like what Aaron said. You know, we would find someone who would rule over us. I don't think that we would come to that conclusion.
Excuse me. Sorry. I always thought it was an interesting thing that the founding fathers did was they created government to prevent the government from taking over or overt control of the people. It's like, how do you create a government where we could govern ourselves but make sure that the government can never take over the people? And it seems to be we at some crossroads somewhere, and people have like different ideas of when that might have occurred. Is like that stopped happening, and I think for now is like how do we get that back? I mean, some people don't even think we lost it. They think we're still free in that same sense. Or maybe some people say, hey, we shouldn't have that type of freedom because it's dangerous. And that
Yeah,
those seem to be like the consensus right now.
yeah, the founding fathers exactly were allegedly. We've never met them. We don't even know if they're real people, but they were allegedly you and me, right? The people who created this thing called, uh, well, a federal government, actually. The states had already created their own, uh, what they would call a government. I don't know, right? We weren't there. Fuck that. It's all bullshit. It's all not, it's not good for you and me because throughout our history, books that me and you all went through, it leads us to believe that the states created counties and municipalities and local governments to make sure, that uh, everybody was safe, and then it just I'm rambling, but it's out of control. Sorry.
Oh, it's just it's fine. Yeah, I know. It's a big. I mean, here's the thing: when we discuss all these things, and we're just saying them out. It's something that each of us probably personally studied and restudied. That took hours and hours of study and just kind of like we had to think somewhere to to get a an outcome where we can understand it a little bit more. And it is hard to let that out, is get that out there, um, especially on a show, uh, and like a limited time frame. I mean, even though my shows may go out, take like I might be on for 2, 3, 4 hours and stuff like that. Some people won't be engaged for that long, but still, even with that long amount of time to just talk about these things, it's still a long topic. I mean, it just take episodes. Like episode 1, let's talk about history from this standpoint. It's
Yeah,
tough.
let's kind of possibly, Ebum, sorry, um, if we could pick a point, kind of, and say, let's say right now, current, right? Let's just say current situation, what we're all dealing with, getting pulled over, getting tax statements in the mail, getting, uh, you know, just fines here and there. Let's go back from there, right? Let's start where we're at and say, how did this happen? Maybe, is that a good starting point? Because otherwise, like you said, we could start at any point in history, like, oh, let's go to 1967 and say, let's start from there, or 1961, or 1861, or 1771. But what if we start from right now and say, do you own the property you live on? Do you own the property you paid for? How about that? That's a better question.
No, I mean, if we pay off everything, we still have to pay for it, and if we don't pay for it, we're ejected.
Okay, where did that come from?
The government or the banks.
Uh, it, your statement before said if we pay it off, meaning we had a mortgage before, then you
Mm-hmm.
pay it off,
Yep.
meaning you're free and clear from the bank. You're free and clear from the bank. Why do we still owe another $3,000 a year for the property we live on? Why is that?
They have their reasons for it, and it's pretty much, hey, we have to abide by it, or the government will do something, and the banks get re-involved again.
There's no more bank involved.
There
It's
isn't?
just the government. No, it's just the government. It's just the county, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. They come to us and say, yeah, you paid off your bank loan. Absolutely. But you still owe us $3,000 a year. A county agent will show up. And if you don't pay, then the sheriff shows up. He's the man with guns, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are armed and you live on an armed property, well, then they show up with the SWAT team, right? And what are they going to do? They're going to kick you off that property that you have paid for already, free and clear.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how can the government do that? Like, what was involved? Like, is it just pure corruption, or is it something that we did? Is it something we did that gave them the right to do that?
I have no idea. I mean, I've never been in that situation, but I'm sure that situation occurs. But I don't know how it stemmed where they seem to have the right to do that.
Ibam, I believe you have listeners, and maybe might be interested in. Travis, you can stop me if you think I'm, going overboard here. But
no, let me jump in real quick and see if I can draw an analogy.
Okay.
I mean, the thing that I think of that seems to be similar is, uh, let's say I go to the car dealership and I take out I finance a car, and in that initial purchase, I'm paying for registration and license and whatnot, taxes. But when I pay that car off, I still have to, on a yearly basis, pay the state. So the bank's no longer involved, but I'm still taxed on my car in order to operate it with, on the road. So to me, that seems like a little bit of a similar situation where the county has this stipulation where it can tax you because it's just a part of the mechanism. It's just the way that it is. Kind of like what Yvonne said. I don't know. It's just the way it is.
But you missed one thing. You said license and registration, and you forgot one thing. What's that next thing?
I'm not sure. Are you talking about what registration refers to?
If I pull you over.
A title or a deed?
There it is. Title. Who said it? E-Bomb said it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Title. What is a title? Remember, the queen and king only hands down title to, nobles, dukes, and everybody else, but they're required to hand that title back or be knighted, all this stuff. If you still hold on to that title, you have to pay dues.
Okay, so I think I may kind of know where you're coming from because I kind of looked into it. That we're still under the British colonization type of thing.
Kind of, but I wouldn't call it that. But it's kind of the same thing because you have to have title for your car, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, you don't have to. You have it, but the state says they have to give you a title, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing for property. If you have property, you have to have or apply for it and pay for it a fucking title, which means that the state owns a portion of your property, and the portion they own is the taxable part of it. That's it. They don't, come on and build on your land or nothing, but they say, hey, if you come to us, if you go to the tax title office, it's in the same office. The tax office is the title office, and you get a title, you are therefore under obligation to pay a certain amount of portion of the property's value to the state every freaking year. And then, just like Travis was saying, it's the same for your car.
Yep.
You go to the motor vehicle tax office. It's actually a tax office. If you actually look at the front door when you walk in, it says tax office, motor vehicle, and we all walk in there and we happily pay, and we just walk back out, and we wonder why we have to pay $76 a year. It's not that much, but if you don't pay that tax, guess what they can do?
They can take over.
Take your property. They'll take your shit left and absolutely.
So do you happen to know, because I haven't done any research on it, when this happened in the United States with the need for titles for property? Has it always happened since the colonization in America? And I don't know, we're talking about the establishment official historical record, but what have you found on that?
I get you. I haven't looked to how it's traveled from, British common law over to American common law, but I just know that it has. And if there was a specific point in time, like 1861, the Reconstruction Act, or 1913, possibly World War I, or 1919, where Roosevelt said, the Administrative Act rules the New Deal. You heard that? The New Deal.
Mm-hmm.
President Roosevelt.
Yep.
So, where or when it actually took effect to the American people is actually a mindset, not a time and point, of politics. It's just when the people started accepting that, and the people started accepting titles. So my grandparents did, and then my parents did, and then I did, and now. And it's one of those circular things that it's so hard to get out of because
Wasn't property an issue in 1933 as well? Besides gold, I thought I remember hearing that land acquisition was a part of that whole construct with the New Deal stuff that
well,
happened then too.
absolutely, land was granted right back then. Let's just imagine if we went back, 120 years, when the military killed off all the Indians and Spanish and all this stuff. Uh, there was an occupation, so they set up forts. That's why we have Fort Smith, Fort Denver, Fort San Francisco, Fort this, Fort that, and there was an encouragement for the people to move west, to occupy the land so that they could hold it. The government can hold it and then tax us, and I guess go from there. But uh, there, you're right, Travis. Yes, there was a property involvement there in the early, let's say, 1850s to 1900s through there. There was a huge movement for that. If you're going to occupy a land so that you can tax people on it, hell yeah. I'd give them free land. Let's just say free, and then tax them later. Tax their family later. Absolutely. Yeah. Wouldn't you if you were an occupier?
It makes sense. I mean, it's just like how drug dealers, they know that it's addictive. They'll give the like the drugs that they sell, they'll give it for free. Once you're
Yeah,
hooked, they know you'll just
exactly.
come back.
And you can't come back once those people, let's just say, after industry is involved, right? So now they have running water to to their house, so they don't have to have a windmill and a log cabin and stuff. Now we start to create little towns. We call them towns, and there's like amenities, commodities, or just things you can use. Running water, for Christ's sakes. People have loved that. You know.
Hmm.
So when a government can provide that, they can definitely designate the area that they provide that water in and call that a tax district. They can definitely do that, guaranteed. You know, why not?
Yeah.
Well, and then you find it seeping over into other areas. It just starts to slowly leach.
Yeah,
So I remember my mom was telling me she goes camping a lot in California, and they had a deficit one year. They couldn't find like X amount of millions of dollars, and so they raised the camp fees. Well, after a while, they actually had the books balanced, but they never lowered the fees.
yep,
So, so now if someone moves to California and they pay, $90 a night, they might think, "Oh, that's kind of steep," but they didn't know it used to be 45. And so it's like, when did this change? And so the whole thing with the narrative with the right to travel and the taxation on our right to travel is now under commercial law. So they they taxed businesses that were using public land or public roads, because they were using heavy equipment and whatnot. So they started taxing and license. You have to have a license to operate your business. Well, then all of a sudden we found ourselves under that umbrella of commercial transactions. But I'm not in commerce when I drive. So why do I need a license? And so all of those lines have gotten blurred. And now my kids, well, even me, I only know it because I started listening to other people talk about it. But I wouldn't have known, that's just what you do. You go get your license.
Yeah, it's on TV. It's on the telly.
It's on the telly.
On the telly.
I mean, okay. I mean, you're a truck driver, right, Travis?
Yeah.
Now, are there any particular like you need a specialized license to drive it? And
Yeah, it's a technicality, sure. I've got to pass a written exam. I've got to.
It's not a specialized license, by the way. It's just a classed license, just classed. That's all. Transportation as a code, as Travis just said,
Mhm.
it's just whether or not you're a private driver. Driver is an occupation, or you're a commercial driver. Driver is an occupation. The class just means how much weight you can carry up and down the road. That's it.
Yep.
But even with a class like you and me should have, just means that we can carry passengers up and down the road for public purposes, for commercial purposes, for using the public highway to transport persons, or property up on the public highway is a regulated activity by the state. If I go to Walmart, I'm not transporting persons to property up on the public highway for purposes of transportation. Right? It's kind of simple to understand, but when you go to court with it, the judge is like, "Nope, you had a pen in your truck, so you're transporting pens." That's what I got told one time. So he could prove that I was in the transportation code, which requires a license.
And then if you think about whether or not, if you ask somebody whether or not they are let's see if you were to ask somebody what transportation means, they just simply think that it means going from one location to another, or you just transport. It's just like going from one place to another. But it's not. It's a technical term. It means something.
Transportation is a state-defined term. The state gets to define its own terms. Yes, it does. Absolutely. If I wish to be engaged in one of their activities called transportation or dog grooming or medicine or whatever their administrative code is, right? Any one of those titles. Have you ever looked up the administrative code of the state that you live in? It's like 55 titles. If I wish to be engaged in one of those things, I have to have a license for it. So I have to go to one of their offices and apply to get a license. Well, transportation is one of their codes. It's one of their titles. And we walk into their offices and we apply to be engaged in what's called transportation. Travis, go ahead.
Oh, I don't have anything to add. I lied. So going back to what I said before, Ivan, with your daughter, right? So if you taught her how to drive and she was a safe driver, and you on your own said, "Okay, Jenny, I think that you're ready. I think that you can go out and do this. You're awesome. Be safe, have fun." What changes between the fact that you've given your permission to her, and if she goes to the state and gets a license, what has changed? Or actually, let me ask this: what's the same? Am I clear?
I don't know exactly. No.
Okay, maybe I just say it instead
Okay.
of trying to fish it out. What's the same is she still knows how to drive.
Travis. Sorry to cut you off. Ebum, if your daughter's, when you teach her to drive, which you will,
Yep.
I bet. You know, what would a piece of paper in her pocket do to save her from you know, getting in an accident? Let's say not from somebody else, because they may do that, but they are state licensed drivers. They're the ones that got licensed from the states. They're the ones that are going to ram her, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you are the ones going to teach her how to avoid that. And so, what would a piece of paper from the state in her pocket, after you taught her how to drive and drive safely, back and forth to school, back and forth to the park, wherever she goes, what would a piece of paper do to negate that accident?
You mean like having insurance to pay
No,
for that accident, or like
her
a permit
ability,
or a license where she's
her,
permitted
her ability to manhandle your car, right?
to operate?
Yeah. Does the piece of paper in her pocket change her ability
Oh no,
before or after? Right. Right.
of course not.
So yeah. So then, what's the difference then?
Oh.
What does
Someone.
the piece of paper prove?
I would
What does it?
rather have. I would rather have, if she hit me, I would rather have your name and number on a piece of paper in her pocket, so I could call you instead of the state if she hit me, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, fuck the state. What are they gonna do? All they're gonna do is ticket me, ticket her, ticket us, ticket everybody,
Increase
make
their
money.
insurance costs,
Yeah,
etc.
exactly. Where if she banged my fender, I could call you. Me and you could come over, shake hands. You know, bang the fender out. We're good.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
this is kind of like a whole middleman issue. It's like, hey, like you don't need to get involved. Oh no, we have to get involved, type of thing. I mean,
So are you still on the line? You have a license in your pocket, right?
yeah,
Yeah. And you have insurance.
yep,
Absolutely. Okay.
yep. Insurance, permits,
No,
licenses. I've
no
got
big
all
deal.
that.
No big deal. No big deal. Those are good things. Those are good things. Those are not bad things. Those are benefits of the state. And remember, the state's not bad. It's just something that me and Travis are thinking about and talking about. That if we get together with folks, um, you and I could insure each other. You know, why do we need corporate insurance? How much have you paid in insurance your whole life? Like me, 40, $50,000, 60.
Yep.
Gee, I haven't seen that money back, and I have had no accidents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's the thing with insurance. You don't get that money back.
Yeah, yeah. We just pay for the bad people,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, if if, like, I think Travis, when I started this conversation with y'all, Travis was talking about what if a community started where we support each other. Okay.
I,
Now, here's my problem with that, because that would be, Travis, the next city, right? We would just be doing the same thing that the government would be doing. You know, like, who would be in charge of the money? Who would be collecting the funds and all this stuff? Or, who would be the sheriff? Who would be the judge? Something like that. Go ahead, Eva. I might cut you off.
oh yeah, I think there could be. I mean, there's a lot of problems with that off-grid communes, especially if you're unarmed. That's one thing, or if you're armed, that's another problem. But like, if the government or entities really want to stop you, they could probably infiltrate become a part of the community and sabotage, just make things just really not very good, just create chaos and derision within the community.
Disrupt. Yeah,
and,
disrupt.
and they could also do things outside of it, just to, it's like, hey, you're on our public property or whatever, and they'll just do things outside of it. We're out of what you're living, and just like maybe just put stuff in the water, put stuff in the air, just make
Can I
things
ask,
really, yeah,
can I ask
harassment.
you a question? Yeah.
So
Um, these people you're talking about, right? The disruptors, or the government infiltrators. Uh, where do they get their money to operate?
I don't know, a lot of that's secret.
Okay, well, do you pay them?
Probably.
Do
I
I
mean,
pay them?
we,
Yes. Does
if we're paying into the system, then the system.
Okay, so the best way to stop government infiltration is to stop the money flow, right? And so I don't suggest stop paying taxes. I don't suggest stop paying whatever they ask right now. But together with a bunch of people, if we all, which the movement is growing, where folks are realizing that, like, the especially the federal government, they're taking 30% of your money, they're taking 30% of my money, Travis's money, 40%, 50% of your daily earnings. They're just robbing it to people you don't even know. You know what I mean? And so, if now, here's the thing: if we stop that, nothing will happen. If we say, "Oh, fuck that," nothing will happen, because the the other 300 fucking million folks that watch mainstream news, that just totally believe there's a terrorist around every corner, and there's immigrants trying to take their job. you know, they're willing to pay 30 to 40% of their earnings every fucking day. That's 3 hours a day out of their workday. That goes to folks that they don't know and have never met and will never meet, to support the law that forces us to pay, right? And it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Here's my take on it is, we when we're born, we don't have a say in which family we're born to. We don't have a say where we're actually gonna to live. At least not after we're born. Not when we know now. I'm not talking spiritually. Let's just keep it material. We don't, and we have to abide by whatever laws of the land that we're living in. We don't have any say into it. And so if we don't have any say into it, and that occurred for us, and now we would have to assume that it was applied to our parents. Our parents had the same thing. When they were born, they didn't have a choice to know who their parents were. They didn't have a choice of where they're going to be, which land they're going to be born to, and then which laws that were formulated. So, and then now, if they're like us, if we're like, okay, so current way things are right now, and we try our darndest to change legislation so it's actually freer and we don't have to pay taxes where we don't need to. Yet instead of doing that, the opposite seems to occur. And then our parents' time, and they tried that and it didn't work. Well, when did it work? I mean, when did it get to be the point where they realized that they're born into something that they had no control over, wanted to change it, and thus, it was a clean slate? Like, I mean, is it each generation's duty to control in some form or another of what they've been born into?
Absolutely not control, but to oversight, for sure.
Yes.
To oversight, for sure. And as an answer to your previous in, story about your parents and government and all that, remember, go back. Our parents created a government,
Mm-hmm.
not their government. They would what kind of stupid parents do we have? They would say, "Yes, neighbor, you're my boss."
Yep.
They would never do that. So a government was created, absolutely, and it's absolutely necessary. A government is absolutely necessary, but not my government. I People would never create like tell other folks like you get to control me and tell me how much I have to pay you.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. So if you think about why was a government created? What was the purpose of it? Why did the folks stand back, the people, your parents
Mm-hmm.
stand back, my grandparents stand back and say, yes, we need a government of small officials down here. Whoa, what was the point? What do you think the point was?
Like I don't exactly know where you're going from or where how I'm supposed
Well,
to answer it.
your parents didn't create their government at all,
Yes.
right? Okay. But a government was created. A government was created.
Well,
So what was
or they're born into a government that they just abided by.
say again?
They were born into a government that they just abided to participate in, just like me, right?
Oh, okay. All right. Let's go back then. Let's go back. Or you're
Aaron,
yeah.
isn't it some sort of acquiescence that is that or delegation? I mean, it's to a certain extent we're saying we don't feel like we can do what needs to be done in this regard, and so we're appointing you to do this for us.
For example,
Because,
can you give me one example, Travis? You're on the right
well,
track.
if we just think about the American Revolution, I mean, if I think about what I recall, I believe I remember hearing uh, that England was taxing the colonists 3%, and so, but in order for them to break free and uh, and revolt, they were they allowed themselves to be taxed 30% and go to war to die. So, in order to be free from 3% taxation without representation, we're allowing our local government to tax us 30%, and a lot of us are going to
Oh,
die.
hold
I
on, hold
think,
on, hold on.
hold on.
Tax who? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking out loud. I think that I would still rather be only taxed 3%. I would have said, no, I'm good. But
Yeah, but hold on. But like, do we know that the tax rate at that time, after the formation of the Constitution was formed, that the tax rate was at 30%?
that's what I'm saying. I was trying to remember
But I
what
will
it was.
guarantee you that the tax, whatever it was at that time, only applied to businesses. I guarantee you that. It did not apply to farmer, Ebam Kim raising his family, having property. It did not apply to him. It only applied to businesses. Guaranteed.
Well, right, but see, then that's where the whole leaching over into the private sector, or I'm sorry, the public sector comes in. So that
Public sector into private property. Yes.
yeah.
So when does private property become public business? When does that happen? When does your property become private? When does your private property become public government
When it
interest?
gets swallowed up into the
Ebom said
alternative
it.
narrative
Ebom said it before. It's a word that starts with T. Starts with T.
title.
There you go. There you go. When you title it with the state, right? Makes
So
sense.
how can is there an instance where you can have land without a title in the
In
United
the
States?
United States, no.
Well, that's
Actually,
like asking, is there an
I'm
instance where you could
trying.
drive your car without a license?
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying, Ibam. Uh, but because this land, let's say I live on Texas, right? It was part of the Louisiana Purchase a long time ago, and and at that time, you know, the king and queen had titles, and they had land purchases. Spain owned this; they bought it from Spain. All this fucking bullshit. So that when we, you know, your grandparents, my grandparents came upon here, no, we cannot have free land anymore. We have to pay dues to live here. So it goes back to what you're saying about, oh, does the Queen of England own America? I don't know, but it is kind of that same uh, procedure
Mm-hmm. Uh,
where
like like the reason why I started is like we don't have any say in what we're born into and the land and the laws, etc. Now, when at a certain point, you know, is there like the government? I would say says you don't have any right to change things except by playing this game. You know, whatever the political system is. So you can change through these you can change things through these means, and we won't touch you. But if you try any other way, we're gonna get you, right? And so, does it have to come to a revolution where people understand that you know they don't have any rights because they've never created the system where they can have those rights because they're born into whatever rights that they're just born into, and if they just abide by that, then people the system will lay their hands off of you, right? But then you know once you realize that hey, I actually don't have any rights, and I never had a say into the rights that I supposedly don't have. So what can I do? Is the only thing to do is to have armed revolution to get those rights and start
what what
over.
if, what if in this country, Ibram, were you born here in America or were you born in South Korea?
Yeah, I was born in Houston, Texas. Remember?
Oh, that, and your last name's Kim, so I'm assuming South Korea.
Yep. Hey, Travis, you're making a lot of noise in the background.
Sorry.
That's right.
Okay, sorry.
Gee whiz, Charles. What are you doing over there? Anyways, yeah, I haven't been to South Korea, but I have a good friend, Shin Young Hwan, uh, and he's South Korean. Anyway, one of my best friends. I met him in China, and so you are Native American born.
Yep.
So you are okay.
I mean, it's not like I had a
So,
choice either way. To
well,
know.
well, well. No, you don't have a choice, just like me, right?
Hmm.
However, when it comes to rights, apparently there are certain rights written down, right? Uh, there are certain rights in this fucking country that is why your parents came here, apparently,
Hmm.
to be more free and be more productive and you know and to have more opportunity and all this shit, less taxation, but that's called the Bill of Rights, right?
Yep.
Now, do have you ever tested those Bill of Rights? Have you ever tested them? Say, do I have these first 10 rights?
Um,
Speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of
I try. I mean,
harm, uh,
it
you
like
know, freedom of search and seizure, freedom of right to remain silent, freedom. Have you ever been pulled over?
yes, I've been pulled over.
And every one of those rights goes out the window, right? Like
Yeah.
if you say if you have a gun on you in your car when you get pulled over, dude, you're the most highest terrorist they could ever imagine, right? The cops would just say, lock him down, lock him down. There's a gun, even though you didn't grab for it. There's a gun. Like, why is that? I thought we had the, Second Amendment, freedom to carry.
Yep. And also, that's also First Amendment rights. You don't have to respond. And also Fourth Amendment. If they ask to search your car to see if you have a gun, that's your right. You don't have to allow them to search.
Right to remain silent.
Exactly. Plead the fifth. Self-incrimination. Yeah.
Yeah, but all those rights go out the window when you get pulled over.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that these rights were written, but we're not a part of that government. It's assumed that we're a part of that government.
What I'm saying is those rights were written, but they weren't written for you and me, because you, and I'm trying not to be, but you are a citizen, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. You're a resident, probably. Do you have a residence?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. See, these are fictitious entities. Residents, citizens, taxpayers, homeowners, all these things. That's not what the Bill of Rights applies to. It applies to the people, which is free people. And I'm trying to be that. I'm still a resident, still a citizen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I'm trying to realize, like, why the fuck, when I get pulled over, the cop can just take my car. He can just take it, right? Mm-hmm. My shit. He can just take it. Like, why is that? If I don't have a piece of paper, he can just take my fucking car. Yep. Why is? And I'm starting to realize it's because that to get that license, to get the title, to get the car itself, I have to apply for certain shit, which means I have to hand over rights to the government, I have to hand over interest to the government.
Hold on, I can't hear you. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Are you there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have to hand over all these interests and rights, and that's what gives them, let's just say, rights to my property. Is I handed it over. It all starts with title.
Right, and that's what I was saying earlier, was that imagine not going into that arena. That's the catch-22. If you don't enter this arena, we're going to steal your shit. But if you come into the arena, you're now giving us, you're now stepping into the arena, and we're still going to be able to. So either way, you know what I mean. So you have to get a driver's license. Why? Well, because if we catch you driving without one, we're going to put you in jail. So it's coercion everywhere, every way you look at it.
Yeah,
it is. It is. Hold on, Travis. It is, but paperwork issues, right? Like if you don't have a driver's license, if you don't have title, if you don't have registration, you don't have insurance, these are paperwork issues, okay? It's not like you rammed some old lady walking across the street. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. These are issues, paperwork issues are when they, in my case, they figured out that I didn't have paperwork. So they pulled me over for non-moving violations. You can't do that. You have to pull me over for a moving violation, such as crossing lanes, hitting somebody's property, or whatever a moving violation is, speeding, all this stuff. They pulled me over for non-moving violations, which are paperwork issues. And paperwork issues cannot be escalated into first offense crimes, but they tried.
Yeah.
And go back to your point, because I lost what you were saying, but I went on to my point.
No, it's fine. A lot of it's just stuff is just repeated. I mean, it feels as though, as a lot of us are testing the system, especially people who are content creators. What I see is a lot of people who are just filming police officers doing this and that, and they have no right to do it. And certain people who understand at least the law, at least how they understand it, is like, hey, you could. If the police officers tell you to do something, and you just tell them what is my offense? What are your grounds for from keeping me here?
Sure. Well,
right?
you say,
And they'll
hey,
ask,
always be, polite,
yeah,
and just say, "Hey, officer, am I being detained?"
yes,
Right?
yeah, that
And that's
terminology.
a trigger word. That's a trigger word for them. I've read police blogs.
Mm-hmm.
They've come out with these new blogs saying, "Oh, folks that say, am I being detained?" are part of this new movement. A
Mm-hmm.
new movement called the Freedom Society or some bullshit. They're
Yeah.
training these officers to think that way. So if you're doing nothing wrong, walking up and down the sidewalk, and a cop says, "Come here," you can keep going. You don't have to stop.
Yeah.
Of course, you've broken no law. You're doing nothing wrong. He goes, "Hey, give me your ID." And you say, "Well, okay." Then you be cordial because he's got a gun and he'll probably shoot your ass. So you turn around, "Hey, officer, how are you doing? My name is Bob." Just say, actually, my name is John Doe. See what he says. And am I being detained? And if he can't give you a reason why,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to say. It's one of those things where you have to be in that situation, for
Yep.
for a guy to give you an answer, but which I never have.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's a weird situation because I'm in the mindset I'm free and I've got rights. Now, if I'm alone and a cop is starting to be hostile towards me, I'm at this point in my life where it's like, go ahead and shoot me, kill me. I mean, if you think you have that right to, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm just gonna go on my way.
I
Now,
kind of
on the other hand, if I have my wife and my kids with me, that's a little bit different situation. I may have to defend myself and my family. So at that point, it's like, you should stop being hostile. I'm
but here's the
fearing for my
thing.
family, and
You you have
and
the
then
right
that would
to
escalate
defend
the
yourself.
situation. But I have to be prepared for that situation to escalate, which it shouldn't. But if it happens, you have to be ready. I mean,
In this country, you have the right to defend yourself and your family,
mm-hmm,
whether it's in your car or not. However, like you just said, when a policeman shows up, you will back down. I will back down because if we defend ourselves and our family from our own car and shoot a police officer,
mm-hmm.
in the leg or whatever, dude, we're going to jail for life.
Yeah, I know. You just have to prepare yourself for that. I mean, if you really want to be free, you have to live freely, and you have to not be afraid of death. And that's just a tough standpoint, and you have to take it onto yourself. Are you prepared for you to lose your life when the time comes when to test whether you're free or not? Now that comes as a different situation with family. It's like, hey, the officer comes, it's like, you better do this, and you go, we don't have to. It's like, one of these days you might have something happen to you, like your family, and at that point, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, that's just a threat towards
You've
family
also heard
members.
bite the bullet, right? You bite the bullet. If an officer
That's
comes
what most people do. Yes, at,
to
at,
you,
at at pretty much any point in my life, besides maybe a month from now, I was ready. I'm ready to give in. Right? I'm ready
but
to be
not in front of your
submissive and
family.
and,
What
and
I'm saying,
subjective.
Imam,
Look,
what
let
I'm
me
saying,
finish.
Imam,
But
is in
now,
front,
when you come
of
to,
your
let
kids.
me finish,
In front of
please.
your kids.
Let me finish,
In front of
please.
your kids.
Let me finish,
Imam,
please. But from a month ago, I'm ready. I'm ready to move on from this plane. but I'm ready to do it on my terms. So,
in front of your
anyways,
kids,
yeah, in front of my kids.
I would say I would bite the bullet and
You
teach my
would.
kid.
I won't. I wouldn't.
No.
Maybe a month from before now, I might have. Not anymore.
Ebon, what was the turning point for you?
I know what all this is. I can't explain it where anyone would grasp it. But
Do you have fines?
huh?
Do you have fines and fees? Are they coming after you?
Not that I know of.
Okay, I didn't know. I was just asking. I do.
It's a
They want $3,500 from me, and I keep telling them to fuck off for 5 years.
yeah. It's a spiritual freedom. I mean, at this point in time, if I die, look, I'm okay with it. Now, what I want is to die on my terms as to what this life means to me and everyone else, and that's it. And I'm just gonna adhere to that, because once I step off of that ideal, I guess you could say, that's when I become afraid. That's when I realize that all of this didn't matter. But when I operate on the idea that, yeah, this matters and there's a reason why it matters, I'm not afraid. So I know what the stakes are. I'm all in.
I feel you 100%.
Because we're not going to have change without people who aren't afraid to lay their lives down on the line.
Yeah, at the same time, every day is a new day. We'll go from there. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's how I kind of feel. If I get pulled over and it gets to that point, I'm not afraid. Fucking kill me, state. You're fucking fake anyway. Fuck you guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Prove your point. Prove your point to my family that you're a fucking fake. Right? That you lie, not me. Right?
Yep.
So I feel with you on that. But let's just go day by day. Let's just go day by day. I hope to see you tomorrow.
Yeah. That's what we all hope for. And we all hope to see each other the next day on better terms than before, whether it's personal or it's I mean, it's like there's all these distractions going on in the world. We can't verify them. But, you know, on our day-to-day basis, we can have conversations. We could talk. We could say, hey, it seems like there's a problem going on over there. Can we do anything about it? Should we do anything about it? Does that affect us? If it does affect us and someone else has a problem, is like, and are trying to warn people that, hey, it's probably going to happen to you. And then if you look around, you go, hey, it is happening locally. So what are we going to do to deal with this situation?
Our likely cause of death will be the state.
Yeah,
right?
Most likely, I would say.
That's just weird to say. The thing that we're supporting our whole life, all the taxes we're paying, the money we're fucking paying, will be the cause of our death. Oh,
yeah, it is funny to see it that way. Isn't it ironic?
it's so ironic, but you know, whatever. I don't know. And hey, if we're the first ones to go to cause a revolution, you know, for the rest, I'm okay with that. Travis, what do you say?
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
And it's funny, it's like we don't really like want it. We just want to be left alone, type of thing. And then we realize no matter what, we can't be left alone. Isn't that the weird thing? It's like, we just want to be left alone. Oh, you can't be left alone. Well, what do we do? It's like, okay. It's like we basically have to pay people to leave us alone. It's like, that should just be the ordinary state of things. To be left alone and to leave someone else alone. But people are getting paid to not leave you alone in order for you to pay them to be left alone.
The more you minimize yourself in the system,
mm-hmm.
the more exposed you are, right?
Yeah.
The more you don't have a license, don't have insurance, don't have property title,
Hmm.
every time you take away those pieces of paper, the more that government, your neighbor's government that they support,
Hmm.
it's your neighbor, the one supporting them, saying, "Oh, he has to have fucking title. He has to have all this. He has to have all that." It's your neighbor that's saying that. They're saying you have to be like your neighbor, right? Who is a full political supporter, bullshit title, registration, resident, citizen, everything. How come we just can't live on free land? Why?
Yeah. Have you ever drove across country?
I have. Yeah.
When you get to, I mean, what's fascinating to me is that there's just so much land, and I'm usually talking about just kind of like especially from like middle of Nebraska to like the northwest, and a lot of it is just cordoned off. You see maybe a farmhouse every now and then. Some stretches you don't even see any cows. You don't even see any livestock at all. It's just cordoned off land. Um, it's like I don't even know if anyone lives there, but they're just cordoned off. And it's like, what would happen if like you
There,
decide to get off that main road, drive through all this private property, and get to some point that's just off grid? Is like, how long would it take for them to find you and say, hey, you're not allowed to be here? you know?
yeah, but EBOM, there's an overpopulation problem. Right?
yeah.
You have to admit that. Um, I mean, from the whole state of Texas, if you take the whole state of Texas, every 1.6 billion people in the state of Texas could have a 1,000 square foot house. Granted, there'd be no roads, no nothing, but it'd just be all 1,000 square foot house. So the whole population on Earth could fit in 1,000 square foot houses in the state of Texas. That means the rest of the planet is empty, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a population problem, apparently, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta be kidding me. And so, yes, I've driven Highway 80, I 90 up to Seattle, all there. And yeah, there's nothing there. It's open land,
Yep.
free land, right? Well, sorry, Mr. Kim, it's actually federally controlled land, okay? You cannot occupy this land,
Yep.
okay? Remember 40 acres and a mule? You ever heard that story?
No.
Back in the old days when they told the white people to move west, it's like, we'll give you 40 acres and a mule. It was a government promise, right? You just go stake your claim. You've heard that term, right?
Yep. Yep. I heard that.
Stake your claim. You can't do that anymore. Why? Why can't we do that? Why can't we go stake our claim anymore?
I have no idea.
Because we're not the people. We're actually residents and citizens. Residents and citizens are not defined in the Constitution. Residents and citizens are defined in administrative law. So, how do we get back to, let's say, a constitutional people? I don't know. I'm trying. But I don't know if it's possible. I believe exactly what you're saying is they're going to come after us with guns at some point. Um, if we try to be free, if we try to be free, there will be guns at our door at some point.
It's almost like it takes a it might be like a group martyrdom in a way. It's like, hey, we're testing the system, see if we are free. If let's test the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and all of that, and let's see what happens. Will they kill off all of us, try to send us to jail. But it takes a group. It's like if one person does it, no one's gonna know about it. You have a group like this off-grid commune idea, and you have 500 people, consisting of parents and kids. Now that is a totally different situation. It's like most people would say, why don't you leave those people alone? They're testing to see if we're free or not. Obviously, it seems like we're not free. And it's kind of an awakening, but rather than having an individual become the martyr, it seems to be like it has to be a large group.
What about Waco, Texas? Remember that?
Yeah, but that was in a time where they really couldn't.
They were ahead of us.
Yes, they were, but
because all they wanted to do was create a community.
There's Travis has. Okay, go ahead.
Travis.
He just had something beeping.
He's a weird guy. He's always got shit going on. But yeah, Waco. Whether or not we believe the mainstream narrative that they were religious priests or pedos or whatever, all they were trying to do was just say, "Hey, we bought acreage. We bought 28 acres." And we want to create our own school and our own families, and our own. We'll use your money. Everything's fine. And we'll still respect the rights of the state gun rights. So they bought, rifles and all that shit. And the FBI moved in on it, saying, no, you cannot. If you ever try to disrupt our mainstream, norm of lifestyle.
Yep.
Can't do that.
Oh yeah, I think it can be. It takes a lot of foresight, I would think, because part of it is the people who are going to come and either try to take you out of the land forcefully or to use deadly force if necessary. You just have to let them know and realize that they have a choice. And the ones, and I always wonder, I always wanted to ask or tell them is like, why don't you have your boss come and do your job for you? Or do you really want to kill all of us and the kids?
That's a good question. Very good question. However, I have a question for you.
Hold on, I can't hear you. I lost you. Hold on. I think it might be you. Yeah, I can't hear you.
I dropped off a couple minutes ago too. It just I lost all audio with you guys, and then I came back on. So I don't know if he dropped off or something.
Yeah, he might have. I mean, I mean, that's the whole reason kind of for this live stream, and I'm glad you guys came in. But it's as though we're left. There's not many choices. Yeah, he went up. Okay, he's back in.
T-Bomb, can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you now. Yep, can you hear us? You're muted. Oh no, wait, that's Travis muted.
D-Bomb, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Hold on. I can hear you. Hold on. Volume. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, gee whiz, you're on my phone now. At first you're on my speaker, now you're on my phone. Or the earpiece, I mean.
Oh.
This is turning into a shit show.
My wife called. Sorry.
It's okay.
So, what were we talking
about? Whether if all it takes is just to get people to live in these off-grid communes, just kind of have start off, and test it every couple of years, decades, see if technology can show people. It might have to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Wacos, for people to realize, hey.
But what if it took all for you to do is to get rid of the piece of paper in your pocket.
Just destroy the title?
Not destroy it. Give it back. Right? You walked into an office to get that title, right?
Mm-hmm.
So walk back into that office and give it back. Yeah, you can't just destroy it. That's called destruction of government property. You can't. But what if you walked back into the office and gave it back? Said,
I don't
hey,
know. What if they didn't take it back? So it's just left on the ground. Isn't that just kind
just
of destruction of
just
property?
just try it. Let them leave it on the ground, right? Or you say, I would like to cancel this title, right? Maybe there's a form for that, so you can fill it out. Okay, cancel this title, right?
That's interesting. Have you done
There's a way.
that? Do you know anyone who's tried that?
Yeah, I've done it,
Huh.
but the government doesn't honor it. That's the problem. They don't honor
Well, if they have no honor, they're not going to honor it. So,
it. Exactly. That's the fucking problem. But if more people did it, then maybe they would honor it. Because the way to get a title, how do we walk in? How do we get a title? First of all, we walk into their office, right?
mhm.
We show all our ID, we show all our residency, we show all this information about us, and then we fill out this application for title, right? It's called an application for title, right?
Yep.
We fill out all this fucking application. So we give all this information and we fill out one of their forms. We hand it over to them, and then maybe 30 days later they go, "Oh, you've been accepted." Okay, all right, you've been accepted as title holder. Oh, that's great. Okay, how do you give it back? How do you say no? I don't want that. Right?
Yeah.
What if you didn't need it to begin with? Right? What if we only did that because we thought we needed, what if we actually didn't need it? What if you could actually live your life without that title? Without a state title, can you still go to Walmart? Can you still go to church? Can you still go to school? Can you still go to work? Without this piece of paper, could you still do all the stuff you need to do? Kim?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Until they find you and want to do something about it.
Absolutely, you could. That's right. But hey, let's just keep it at one point. Yes, you could do absolutely everything you could do without this fucking piece of paper.
Well, that's the same thing that's the same thing we were talking about earlier. What changes?
Yeah.
If you have the paper, if you don't have the paper, the only thing that changes is permission. I have paid you your money. Now leave me alone.
Yes. But what they see, Travis, is you have paid us the money, so now we get to enforce you.
Right. But you forced me to. You made me enter into this.
No. You walked into our office.
No.
Remember, Kim? Hey, Ebam, we walked into that office voluntarily. We gave them a registration.
No, it was not voluntarily. I went in there to prevent you from coming after me if you caught me without the permission slip.
No, nobody came to your front door saying you better go to that office. Right? Nobody came to your front door ever in their whole fucking life saying you better go to the registration office. No government agent ever came to your door saying you better access or go to that office.
But sometimes, depending on how you get to the situation, for example, they'll tell you, in order for you to get this, you need to do this and get this. So it's just like the title. It's like, say you're going through a bank to get that mortgage. They go, in order for you to for us to complete this transaction for this mortgage, you need to go get the title. So that's kind of the thing.
Different.
Yeah.
the bank, when you do buy property from a bank, it's a state title that they're transferring ownership or um, holdership. Let's say holdership, because a bank can't own anything. Thank God, because if a bank could, they'd own everything. But a bank has holdership. They can hold stuff, which is called title, and so uh, that's where you're transferring at the bank. Because if you have a mortgage and the bank puts up the money, they own the house, right? They own the property. You know what I mean? It
Mhm.
kind of makes sense. If we run to a resource called a bank and say, "Hey, can you give me some funds?" and they say, "Okay, but we're going to hold title, right? We're going to hold the holdership of this property so that if you don't pay, we can hold it back."
I have a question for you because this is something I ask kind of a lot, but of course I don't really have much people to really answer. Is what why did the United States went because you're a huge land, you're new land, you pretty much fought off the biggest empire of the world at the time, which is England, and you defeated them, and the historical record shows us that hey, the founding fathers went to go looking for loans uh, over in Europe to pay for the war. It's like, didn't they just conquer, defeat the biggest empire? They have a land of their own where they have their own resources. Why did they subjugate themselves to get a loan from an international bank?
Because, well, the books tell us that the British were, well, the American colonists fought the British, right?
Mm-hmm.
But France stepped in and went down to South Carolina, right? The Carolinas, Virginia, the the Queen Virginia, um, and then Spain stepped in down below and with Florida, and then France also went down below with Louisiana, King Louis, Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
So there was much more interest in the fight that the colonists put up between the European colonies or countries than there was, for the colonists there. That's just what the books tell us.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea exactly what happened, but if you look at the words of the states, Maryland, Queen Mary,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Carolina, North Carolina, you know, the Carolinians, um, Louisiana, King Louis, Georgia, King George,
Mm-hmm.
Alabama. Not sure about that, but you know what I mean. It just they're all named for exactly who paid for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I mean, that's kind of all we have is what they tell us, and then we just look at it, and the most we can do is just question. Is like, what
Yeah,
doesn't make sense? Hey, we defeated the biggest empire ever during that time, uh, and now we need to pay off our debts because of the
but
war.
yeah, New Mexico, like is it Mexico or not Mexico? Like who won the Spanish War? We don't know, but we're being taxed for it for
Mm,
sure,
yeah.
right? We're being taxed for it.
Do you know
And
what? Do you know what Crow Triple Seven's working hypothesis is?
Was that?
That George Washington was King George. That it was all a show. It was all just this crazy freaking
very,
game, man.
Very well could be. Very well could be. Like, how would we know?
Right.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
would know.
How would you know?
But that's
Yep.
funny that he would. Because right now we can make up anything, or
Why
they can
not?
make up
Why
anything.
not rewrite the books? Like, why not? If I was there and I won some simple war, why not rewrite the books and say that I was George or George Washington, and there was a King George that I defeated, right?
Hmm.
Like, why not write that?
Yeah,
Especially when you have control of the printing press,
you know
which
that.
is called the money press, of course. The book press and the money press were the same thing back then.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like, who first decided who can print the money? Like, who gave the
Well,
authority for the bankers to print money, and everyone just goes, okay, yeah, they got the authority for it, so they could print money. And
yeah,
it's like, how did the bankers enforce it? I mean, they'd have to have people to enforce it, but what do they? I mean, if they don't have any resources except for just printed money, where someone has to accept that money is legitimate. It's like, who accepts just a bank, out of
well,
nowhere?
here's the thing: is apparently back in the old days. Remember, there were a bunch of different big industries. We had the Rockefeller industry,
Mhm.
the Carnegie Steel, the rock, the what's the other banker guy? Each
Like
a bunch of
melon something.
yeah, just a bunch of different industries back then who were trying to keep themselves separate and
J.P.
profitable.
Morgan.
Oh yeah,
J.P.
J.P. Morgan. Yeah.
Morgan, the Morgan Industries back then, and uh, they were they had their own what they called citizens. They actually called them that. People that worked there, that stayed there, they were paid in their own little currency, fake little, whether it might be cork dimes, but they could use them at the store, right?
Hmm.
So it was a society in its own fucking realm, right? But those cork dimes, it wasn't cork, it was, let's say a smashed penny or whatever. They couldn't be transferred over to the Rockefeller store, right?
Hmm.
So, but Rockefeller was expanding and he wanted more people. So he was trying to draw people over from the rock Morgans, the all the industries, and somebody had decided somebody had to decide on a uniform currency for the transfer of employees from business to business. Somebody had to do that. Well, it probably would have been the most richest guy saying, "Hey, let's just say it's this piece of paper," right?
Hmm.
Okay. So all these businesses, remember, everybody else is farming, they're living the good life. The Americans are living west. Everyone's doing good. Everyone's happy. We got water, food, buffaloes. Everybody's happy. But in that little city community right there, city citizen, uh, they had to come up with a common currency to trade between employees, slaves, basically. Um, and so that's kind of where a common currency came from, is free movement between states, because all these industries worked between different, what they called colonies or states back then. And it kind of makes sense. If I was a business owner, I would want to do that. Absolutely.
And
But
so,
to
then at that point, all they had to do is just print the money, and they're rich. They don't have to even have to have resources.
Absolutely. Yes, and they
And
can't.
that's the other part of the construct is is business, corporation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. They can absolutely do that. They can print their own money, absolutely. Because if you have your own common store, you have your own common lodging, housing, all that stuff, you can pay people to work for you, to keep working for you, and raise their family for you. Why can't you make your own money in your own little, construct? Why not?
Yeah, I mean, like arcades, they have tokens where you have to play, and they don't use quarters. You know,
Exactly.
they could have an exchange system where $20, where you would normally get 80 quarters with $20.
Yeah.
Instead, you get like 70 tokens, so you get a fee for the the tokens. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, interesting.
That that's how the first big corporations in the American colonies worked. Is they printed their own what we'd call money, but it was just tokens or
Yep.
current, and they provided their own stores and they provided their own housing. People had to pay for it, but it's just like we live today.
Mm-hmm.
We have an apartment and we go to work and then we pay taxes and then we drive home and then we have an apartment and we go to work. We take it, but no, it's like this whole circle.
Yeah.
You know.
Hmm. So, what are your thoughts on that? Because there are the ideas out there that we're the United States, and I think it's mostly was it Jordan Maxwell that states this, that we live in we're under the jurisdiction of a corporation. We're not a state. What are your thoughts on that? And just so you guys know, I think I'm gonna end it in maybe 7 minutes or so, just because it's almost hitting the 3 hour mark. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to keep this going as every night if I can at 10 p.m. So I mean, it's gonna be different topics, but you're free to join in, and we can make this a dedicated topic too if you want as well.
Travis, what do you think about Jordan Maxwell?
I've listened to a couple of his lectures and whatnot. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he is authentic. I didn't feel compelled to continue listening to him, but he just seems to be one of those eccentric. I don't know if I would call him an egomaniac, but I said this before to Yvonne, that it takes a certain character, it takes a certain kind of a person to expose himself and speak his mind and have confidence in what he thinks and what he says. So, I mean, I think I have a certain amount of egoism that I think that I have something to say. And yet at the same time, I'm not Jordan Maxwell. So there's something of a reservation in my...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was just rambling.
No, that's good. It's fine.
I would say I love listening to Jordan Maxwell. I don't know if I would take anything he says into practice or into belief.
Yeah.
But a guy like that, like Travis just said, who would put his fucking person out there and for us all, at least to listen. I'll listen all day long.
Yeah.
If I believe it or not, good for me. If I don't, good for me. If you do, good for you. If you don't, good for you. But a guy like that who, like, we haven't done it, right? We haven't put ourselves out there. Even though we have beliefs, we have certain beliefs we talk about here on this channel. We haven't put it out there. Well, he did. And I'd say good for him. And so I do listen to him I listened to him about 8 years ago when I ran across him. I did not specifically pinpoint, Jordan Maxwell, but when I came across on like some of Jaren's videos or whatever, hell yeah, I listened to him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I like listening to him too. As far as what I can, yeah, you're right. As far as I could put into practice, I don't know. But I mean, the research he's done, the way he puts it out there, it's like it makes sense to me. But it's one of those things like we'd have to do the level of research he's done to see if it's if all the pieces come together, or maybe we just have to put our thoughts into it in order to see if that's correct. But I mean, but yeah, to be out there with your name, to just to be criticized for just kind of your research, and like it's hard. I mean, how much do you want to go research into like his? Because a lot, like recently, he's just having a difficult time, not making enough to meet his his standard of living. His standard of living isn't that great anyway. So, but how much of that can people prove? So it's I don't know, but that he keeps going. Like I figure either I mean, if he's part of like a controlled opposition and he's forced to keep going, and if he's and it's all an act, or maybe he just keeps going because there's nothing for him to do because no one else is going to take him seriously, and he doesn't have any other trade, right? For me, I could always fall back because I understand technology so well. So if I want to go back into the systems, like anyone will accept me for my technological skills, but whether they would accept me because of my stance on certain things, that's to be determined. But then I'm just gonna that's just a challenge to see what happens then. But for me right now, it's just like, all right, my plan a year ago was just in my local community, just teach people and have it for free, and if they want to donate, and just get the community people in the communities, give them something that they don't have. Like, how many people in middle of nowhere Columbus, Nebraska has ever had someone who's worked with like Harvard University, Microsoft, and a big financial system is who did I work with?
Your neighbor is your enemy. That's the thing.
Yeah.
These people, the media outlet you have, let's say the cloud, us, me, like you don't know if I'm real or not, but
Yeah.
I'm your friend. But when you walk down the street and you look at those people, they do not believe the same thing you do, and it sucks.
Well, it's not a
so
belief.
bad.
They have a
It
belief
sucks so
system.
bad.
Yeah, it is bad, but you know what? It's
Because they are the ones that are causing our problem. They are the ones that are happy to pay 30% tax of their money, 40%. They're so happy, like, oh yes, government. And they're waving these flags, saying yes, Trump, or yes, Bush, or whoever. It doesn't matter what president. They're just happy to say that America's the best, the most free. And they don't realize that they are the most subjugated.
Yeah,
people.
but I don't call them my enemy. I don't know if I even have an enemy. I would say that there are potential adversaries that I may face in the future where I am too much of a thorn, where they try to control me. They can't quite, so they have to use different means. And then it's like, do they want to subjugate someone who wants to go and go, hey, let's take Ebon down a notch, or he won't go down a notch, so let's just take him off.
They don't want to talk to you about 911. They don't want to talk to you about moon landings. They don't want to talk to you about driver's license. They don't. They already have their own belief, and they will not deviate from that ever.
Yeah, but that doesn't make them enemies.
Yes, it does, because that's the reason why you have to believe it.
No, we don't have to believe it.
He's saying that they're the enemy because they're going to reinforce the statist mind.
Yes.
They are going to, stand against you and say, "What are you doing? Keep your head down," or "You can't do that." So that's what he means.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Someone has to. There's always been a sacrifice made for the people, and who's gonna take it this time?
We can stick our head ups together, right? So we've done it right now. Three heads. Okay, we've put them up. Let's just show up here again next show. How about that?
Yeah, well, I'm always out on my own shows, anyways. But yeah, I appreciate more company. That's fine and great. And thank you guys for joining in.
We stuck our necks out. Let's just do it again. Let's just see what happens. I'll try to bring some friends in. You try to bring some friends in. Travis, same. And just see if we can't create a small group of folks that understand how the system works. And once we understand how the system works, then we can get away from it. Don't fight it. Never fight it. Get away from it. Okay?
Don't you want to test the system out little by little?
I have, and it's not good. Yeah. No.
Okay. Maybe I can find a little bit of an exploit within the system. At least that's kind of what I'm good at.
You can test it too. I'll tell you how I tested it. You can try it too. I'll support you, and no problem.
Yeah. That's good.
But
let's push back a little, see what happens.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for joining me. People who are joining in or don't really watch, you can always join in on the conversation. Yeah, I don't care if you reveal yourself or not. I'll just take what you have to say, whether I agree or disagree. That's going to be an issue, I'm sure. But I'm happy to hear it. I'm happy that people can just kind of let loose, whether they have grievances or not, or they just, hey, maybe one night you just want to talk about fishing, things like that. But anyways, thanks for joining. Those people who are listening and watching and chatting, thank you. And I'll see you guys another night, Travis and Aaron and everyone else.
All right, thanks, Saban.
Thanks.